This is Designing for Equity, where we give firm leaders smart, real-world strategies to build inclusive cultures, advance women in the profession, and make work fair for everyone. I'm Katherine Porter. Welcome to the podcast. And today my guest is Oksana Lukash. Oksana, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Katherine, thank you so much for having me. As you stated, my name is Oksana Lukash. I'm an HR professional with 25 plus years of experience, primarily in biotech and life sciences, and my focus is startup, small to mid-sized companies. And for the last 3 years, in addition to being in-house, I started my HR consulting company to help even again the more startup founder-led organizations to have the proper foundation for HR when there is not a need for a full-time in-house person.
That's interesting. Now, do you, as part of your role, talk about equity and inclusion and sort of that firm culture, all those different issues that arise? Is that part of what you do?
Absolutely. I very much believe that has to be part of the foundation of any organization, and that just needs to be something that's part of the company's DNA and culture from the very beginning versus, right, a flavor of the month or something that companies do just to check the box.
Yeah, definitely. You see a lot of that. You see a lot of, the firms make it on lists, best place for women, best place for whatever. And it's like, okay, well, there was one I was at. I'm like, that was not my experience. There's that disconnect between what they're doing. And so what would you suggest to actually move the needle and make progress?
Yeah, great question. I wish I had a guide or a simple answer. First of all, I think it really comes down to intention. And I think it's an opportunity for us to pause and also just realize that a lot of practices, the way that we do things, systems, everything really that our companies and corporate world is on are probably outdated. They've been created by people for a time that probably no longer exists. And we also now live in an age where change is the only constant. I think the part that we have not experienced before is the speed with which the world is changing. And it's getting faster and faster every single day, especially with introduction of AI. So that is an opportunity for companies to, again, just really do an honest inventory of what's in place, really spend the time to understand the needs of their employees and their population, and start building programs or just operating in a way that meets the needs of their organization. I know you mentioned some of the lists of best places to work and, best places for different sorts of groups of individuals, and those are great. I think a lot of times we get so competitive and want to mimic or copy something that our competitor is doing or something that we read right on Harvard Business Review, World Street Journal, any of the amazing publications, but we miss the most important part. It's pausing and really having the conversations internally with our employees to understand what do they need, creating those programs, culture, environment that meets the needs of our employees. And it's not easy, and it's also not one and done. It's something that companies need to stay on top of, because as the needs of the organization, as the priorities of the companies change and evolve, and we are very good at coming up with corporate initiatives and corporate goals every single year and going through the budgets. That is the type of cadence and I think the effort that we need to start putting on our talent, which again, in my opinion, is the most important competitive advantage that any company is going to have moving forward, especially in the world of AI.
Yeah, definitely. I think the statistics back that up, right? Investing in your employees and supporting them. If I'm a leader, what's in it for me? How is it going to help me? What would you say to me as a leader? Like, why should I take time? I'll just, as long as they do their work, I don't care.
Well, that's a thing, right? Do you want folks to just come in and clock in, clock out, do their bare minimum, and that's it, right? We always ask employees and our talent to think outside the box, to come up with new ways of doing things, to come up with right new products, new services, drive the business forward. But we're not creating the cultures that support that. So, in order for us to ask our talent to do something different, we need to do something different. We need to create the environments that support that, where it's okay to make a mistake. And the mistake is a learning ability for each individual. Of course, there are unfortunately moments where, right, mistakes are really big. I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about the fact that we're all human. I think, again, we need to embrace the simple aspect of treat people like adults and they'll act like adults. And we spend more time creating rules for the 10-20% exceptions for those right in situations or individuals that either again stumble or make a mistake intentionally or unintentionally that is severe and big, but we then right kind of punish the rest of the population. And I think it needs to be reversed. Let's assume that the best intent, let's again create the environments of psychological safety, and then we will reap the rewards of that. And for leaders is again, you don't really then need to be as concerned about retention, because if your employees and your team is getting their needs met in terms of the work that they're doing, they feel like they're being challenged, they feel like their definition of growth and development is being met, they're getting, things like they're getting fair pay, fair market pay, they're getting benefits that meet the needs of their family and them in the stage of life that they're in, they're going to stay, right? Because again, at that point, if another company reaches out to them with something that your company is not offering, I'm pretty certain, and I've seen this happen, they will come to you and have that conversation and say, Katherine, here are all the reasons why I'm happy. Here's right, wasn't looking, this came to me, and you're going to have an opportunity to decide, is that something that you potentially want to compete with? Or do you want to then again celebrate that employee on going on that next adventure and that next journey? But you're not going to be most likely blindsided by that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Where in the like HR life cycle or the year, performance reviews and things like that, when do you think is the right moment to create these opportunities? Or is it something that just is ongoing?
It's ongoing. Yeah. I fall in the school of thought that in order to get something different, you got to do something different. And building those relationships is not something that happens once or twice a year. It is ongoing every single day. It's caring about your employees every single day. It's checking in with them, even if it's a quick 5 to 10 minute check in, right? Once a week to find out what do they need? What are the barriers? Where can you step in as their leader and help them navigate whatever might be going on? Check in with them as an individual, how they're doing as a person too. It's knowing what's going on within their lives outside of the organization, of course, with whatever they're okay sharing. But then those are the moments. It's every day, it's every week. It's not sitting down once or twice a year and telling somebody what they could have, should have done differently. And it becomes a very one sided conversation. It's in those moments where you are a team and you partner together to align and come up with ways of doing something in a more constructive and productive way where it hasn't happened yet.
That makes so much sense. We talked a little bit about employees. There's all these firms that say, "Well, I have all these benefits, and my employees aren't using it. Do I just need to encourage them to use those benefits?" So like paternity leave, for example. How do we get dads to take that paternity leave? What is your response to that question?
Yeah, I think it's going back and understanding what do your employees need. It's also creating options for benefits that meet the needs of your employees. It sounds silly, but again, most of us hopefully brush our teeth multiple times a day, and no one has to remind us to do that because we understand the benefits, right, of what that habit does. Same thing, it's like have amazing benefit brokers. There are some, right, that barely check the box or barely do any work and believe that the relationship between the company and a benefit broker is right, 2, 3 conversations during the year. And there are brokers that really dive deep on understanding your population, right? The ages of your population, what probably their needs are, where they live, all the demographic challenges that might impact your employees that companies don't think about, and address all of that. And also, then in your specific questions about, let's say, creating an environment for dads to be able to take a paternity leave. I think it's we as leaders need to walk the talk. It's setting the examples. It's your senior leadership when they're going vacation. Be on vacation. Don't be just working remotely and doing the same amount of work and attending all the meetings and sending all the emails. For example, a manager, and you have a child or you have a family member that might need to be taken care of, take that time as well and then have those conversations. It just takes time. And we, I think, also forget that the higher we get in the organization, the more we do set that example, and employees are looking to see not as much what's being said that's okay, but what is being done, what is being rewarded, and what is being punished. So if we as executive and leaders are able to go unplug, take a vacation, come back recharged, talk to our teams about it, and they see that we're still growing, right? We're being promoted. That creates an environment that they know that they can do the same and take that time to be away, and it's not going to jeopardize their career or their ability to again go further with the company.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I thinking back on my own experience and in law firms, and I felt like there's one model of success, and I had hoped to kind of be that person who did things a little differently. I took some time off with my kids, reduced hours, did these different things, and then kind of hit that glass ceiling when I was ready. Like, okay, my kids are older, I can focus more on getting on that partnership track. And it wasn't going to happen. And I was so frustrating. Like, so how do we change that? How do we make it so that there really truly are different paths to success?
I'm hoping it's going to be faster
Yeah.
than at the pace it's going right now. But it's in a way, right? It's your experience. And if you have an opportunity to do something different for your team, or even through your podcast, sharing those stories and then giving platforms for folks that have done something different and just spreading the word. Late as well, I was a very young mom. I had my daughter at 19, where I actually was my first office job. So again, I'm still a kid. I have really just trying to get my sea legs in the corporate world, and then I end up with a child as well. I can relate a pretty traumatic experience where um, I was written up for going to doctor's appointments. The days I wasn't feeling well, there were comments and other things that were said. If we just are either forgetful or tired, or all the things that come with pregnancy, there were kind of repercussions that took place. And I absolutely remember missing a lot of firsts with my daughter that I'll never get back. Work is work, but those are magical moments, and that's it, they're gone. Versus I have an example where I worked in an organization and one of my team members actually was expecting her first child. She went out on maternity leave, and during that time in her maternity leave, I ended up joining another organization. And when her maternity leave was coming to an end, she really wanted to join the new company that I was part of. But at the same time, she was struggling with coming back to work. Her child was only 4 months old. She needed to work also as a young parent, and she felt like she had to choose. I already, again, remembering the sting of, right, being a parent myself, plus also knowing this individual's work quality and dedication, we agreed that I said, look, here's the work. I can, in a way, give you assignments and things that you can do where it doesn't matter when you do them. It doesn't have to be between 8 to 5. Just get it done when you get it done. You're able to then again spend time with your child. We'll figure out work remotely. I will let you know if there are certain meetings or certain events as far in advance as I can where it would be very wonderful for you to be on site. Eventually, we'll figure out how we can get you into a hybrid model. She was one of the most dedicated and hardworking individuals that I've probably come across in my career, or at least in the top 5, because there was that trust. She wasn't going to mess up. She could be a mom, she could be a wife, she could take care of her baby, she could be there for all of those first. And she didn't have to give up her career because she's very driven and loves working. And again, guess what? Within about, I think, 6 to 8 months into her role, she was on site 3 to 4 days a week, not because I asked her to, because she found value in it. Had to check in. I never had to follow up. I never really had to question whether she was working because, in a way, again, she proved that. So I'm not boasting about anything special that I did. But in a way, now she remembers and had that experience that no one can take away from her. And I'm sure that when she's in that management and leadership role, she'll be able to do the same for significantly more individuals. So I think it's just changing the status quo. And I'm hoping it's the domino and the ripple effect.
Yeah, me too. I know recently I've shared my story with a couple people and they're like, oh, well, that was back then. It's different now. And I was like, okay, it wasn't that far back. It was still this century. And like, and you look around and there's still a lot of people, and especially being treated as you were treated, right? Do you agree? Has it
Yes,
changed
but at the
that
same
much?
time, and I'm hoping I'm not getting the date wrong, but if you really think about it, up until 1974, it was illegal for women to have their own bank account without
Right.
their spouse or a male parental figure being a cosigner. So that is not that long ago. I believe right, FMLA was created and went into effect in 1994. So if you think about it from that perspective, we have come a long way in a fairly short period of time. I think it's not forgetting that. And another part is, I think, a society very much focus on and tell very different stories to boys and girls as they're growing up. A lot of the times, the message to the boys is they can be anything and everything that they want to be. And with girls, for some reason, a lot of the times, the message is that there's scarcity and that we're creating that unnecessary sense of competition. Versus, I think, then we as women, if we come together, if we start supporting one another, if we're starting to look at it that, hey, Katherine, you got promoted, that's incredible and amazing. I should be celebrating you. And in a way, right, be your biggest champion, not look at it as because you got promoted, that means something was taken away from me. That there's going to be power in that and in that movement. I think, again, walking into a room and believing in, right, walking into it like we belong there versus I think we still are our worst enemy and question whether we were invited for some other reason. We need to also get out of our own heads. And I think we
Definitely.
can bond together. And that's, I think, where that tidal wave of amazing change is going to again start taking place. Hopefully, again, significantly faster than it has in the past.
I mean, that was my goal. I was when you came in thinking I'm going to be the woman who makes partner, and it might take me, 15 years, like so 5 years longer than a male typically, or the associate who started when I started, and her kids are the same ages as mine, but she took the shortest maternity leave, and then she had daycare and nannies and everything else, and so I'm like, I want to be the one that succeeds without having to do that. I call it showing up for my family the way I want to show up. Some people are happier working all day and they're actually, better parents for having that time away. And that's great for me. When you talked about the different messaging, I was Where I went with it was very personal. I feel like I was primed to be conflicted. I was primed to feel like I had to choose between, and this was by like my own family. It wasn't like anything at the workplace. It was much earlier, right? And I was had to figure out the struggle and how to cross that. And I think it took me a while, and I wish I could go back. I'm sure we all do, right? And go back to the beginning because I always thought I made like a lot of mistakes, and now I'm like, I don't think I made mistakes. I think I didn't have the support I needed at the time.
You made the exact decisions you needed to.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up. I did a post, I think about a week or so ago on LinkedIn because I was asked the question if I had a magic wand in
Hmm.
my career, right, and I could change something, what would it be? And in the moment, I gave an answer. And then I had the opportunity to really think about it afterwards. And you know what dawned on me? I wouldn't change a single thing, not a single thing. Every single painful experience, being laid off, 4 months pregnant while I'm 19 from a first job, right? All the things that have taken place, as painful as they were in the moment, as difficult as they were, they made me who I am today. They gave me the ability to then walk into different rooms, connect with different people, take different jobs, and really, again, build resilience, build right my ability to figure something out where failure was not an option. So I think that's another thing is the same way as I mentioned that companies should really focus on truly understanding what works for them, we as individuals, I think, need to embrace our own journey as well versus trying to compete with somebody else, or maybe compete is not the right word, but right, there's only a portion of what we see of someone else's life and their decisions and other things. And I think the same about us. But again, our journey is our own. And I think it's embracing it. It's embracing those mistakes and detours and stumbles, giving it the time to process, right, the pain or the grief or whatever the emotion that needs to be in that time. But then know that we have ended up better. Everything did end up okay, and we ended up in better places. And then know that that's still going to happen every time again we have that detour, and just embrace the learnings and right what the journey is trying to teach us.
Definitely. I mean, I would never have imagined myself being a podcast host and
There you go.
advocating for gender equity, especially in law and male dominated professions. I thought I was going to be more of an internal advocate for it. Like that was my vision. It was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make partner, and I'm going to have this unusual path, and I'm going to show it can be done, and that's going to really help the women in the firm. And that would have been nice. Like that would have been a great path, but that's not what happened. And so now I'm on this other path. But I think you're right. It's like I never would have really felt as passionate about it, I think, if I hadn't had that experience that I'd had.
And you see, you knew your why. Your why is still the same. You're just taking a different path or using different vehicles to still focus and make that impact.
Yeah, yeah. Because it just like I said, it wasn't that long ago. Like we still have a lot of progress to make, and especially in these kind of traditional areas where there's a lot of resistance, a lot of like, well, I had to do this, so you should have to do this.
Yeah, well, and that's again where that's an opportunity, I think, to engage in conversations. It's an opportunity to again ask questions, right? Not in a confrontational way, but seeking to understand. And it's also we as organizations need to really invest in our middle managers and just leadership. Because I think, again, the idea that it just happens and just because you're an amazing individual contributor and now we're going to give you a team, it doesn't work. And especially there are certain areas like sales. People that go into sales, if we're going to generalize, which I know is not great, but right, they love to be right number one on that sales list that comes out
Yeah.
every single week. They love being recognized on a public stage and going to President's Club. And it's very different when you take that away from them and give them a team and their success is now defined by how successful their team is. So I think we just also need to be more honest and help individuals understand what different roles mean ahead of time and give them right a taste of it and align people with opportunities that align with their values, with their strengths, and feed and ignite those passions. And embrace that a lot of folks don't want to have direct reports. They want to be an individual contributor and still give them the opportunities to grow. Because I think there's a significant misconception that the only way you can get ahead is eventually having a team and leading others. And that's not the case.
Yeah, so and it's true for law firms too. It's like we have these practice groups, we have practice group leaders. It's very often we weren't trained on how to run a business and how to be managers. And I think that's a disconnect that's across other or all types of organizations, right? People make that, but I hadn't really thought about it in terms of the goals and the like the not, I mean, ego, but not in a bad way. Just the sort of like where what makes you feel good about what you doing. You want to, what does success feel like to you, and how is it going to look different if you take this new role? It goes back to what you were saying earlier too. We need to talk to those people and ask them, what do they need? How can we make this a good fit? Do they even want to do it? I think we don't. You just, like you said, you just assume this is the ladder that you climb. But what if you don't really want to climb? Or what if you don't want to climb that direction? What if you just want to be better here? Um, how do organizations like create that space to do that?
I think going back to what we said before, it's having the conversations,
Yeah.
right? It's not me assuming that because you were in a law firm internally that that's your path forever. It's having the conversations. It's me, let's say, if I'm your leader, giving you right insights of what I noticed that you do really well. It's
Yeah.
maybe also giving you insights on areas, maybe in some blind spots that you might not be aware of. It's asking you questions to own your own, in a way, destiny in your career. My job is to open those doors for you, is to help make introductions, is to expose you to the areas that you think are interested in. You never want me to decide what's next for you. It has to be you're the driver of your own career and destiny, and I'm a partner on that journey to help you, but don't ever give the keys to the kingdom, right, to somebody else. And I
Yeah.
think that's another thing.
I
And it's
think,
creating and get that environment and that trust
yeah.
where we can talk about it. And I going back to right the comment I made about retention. If you decide to do something completely different that doesn't exist with the company, don't most, I think, leaders then forget about those employees and be like, okay, whatever. Well, Catherine is going to leave in a year. Why not make it again the best year of your
Mhm.
life? For me to figure out how I can still make those connections and open some doors to help you get as much experience to prep you for whatever's next, and then celebrate you again on that next chapter, even if it's outside the company. Because I think it's as important on how we treat employees on the way out
Mhm.
as it is on how we treat them on the way in. Because if you had a phenomenal journey with the organization and it's either you outgrew the company outgrew you, whatever it is, you can still be the best walking marketing person
Definitely.
for the organization if your experience was such it was positive and your needs were met. And again, we celebrated you on whatever that next chapter was. And who knows, while you're doing your thing somewhere else, the company can grow, evolve, and change in such a way that there's now an opportunity that didn't exist before, and you can come back and bring all of your new experience back. And even if you
Yeah.
don't, like, it doesn't have to be like a breakup or a nasty divorce. Create alum networks, and
Yeah.
you're
That's what I'm gonna
still the
say.
right, you're still gonna then have, right, a line outside the door of folks that want to work for your company because you're going to be known for the fact that you again create those opportunities, develop people, invest in them, and they can have
Yeah.
an incredible career here and then somewhere else right after.
Yeah, I love the analogy with the keys and don't hand the keys to someone. I feel like maybe your role is you're giving me the map, right? Like you're saying these are all the different ways you can get to wherever it is you want to go, and it's up to you to choose it. If you're going over a mountain, I'm going to give you in the snow. I'll give you some chains for your tires, you know, help you. I don't know if that analogy holds, but I feel like it was definitely something that I could have used, you know, in my experience. And it's not unique and it is still happening.
I think we just need to get away from that peanut butter approach, right? That it's one thing that works
Yeah.
for everybody. I know it's again easier, but
Yeah.
easier is not always better. And right, all the things that are worth it, we have to work for them. And usually it's uncomfortable. And again, if we're in a comfort zone, we're not growing, we're not developing, right? So we need to push ourselves out of the comfort zone. We need to help our teams be out of their comfort zone in order to accomplish and do something totally different.
I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but I'm curious how you land on mentorship and sponsorship. Like, I mean, I've seen it try to be work different ways, but like, oh, you sign a mentor, or sign a sponsor, or it's organic, or, you know, I'm curious if you have any insights on that.
Great question. I think, again, it's not a peanut butter approach. I think you need to define what each organization or for each individual, what you want to get out of the mentorship. If it's a more formal program, be upfront about it. Ask who is interested in being a mentor. How much time and
Yeah.
effort is it going to take? Whoever the mentee is, they need to also understand what the program is and what it isn't. And then again, ask for volunteers. But at the same time, that's where I think the trust and the culture and the values come in, because just because somebody volunteered, they might not be a great person to do it, especially if maybe they're not in the best standing or whatever else it might be. So, again, having those conversations, I'm also all for the more, right, for it to happen organically. And it also doesn't necessarily have to happen within the same organization. That's where I think networking groups, going out and finding, as I call it, your own tribe is also very important, and intentionally putting yourself in different rooms with different individuals, and you're going to connect with folks. And I think a lot of times we realize that somebody has been our mentor after that relationship is already developed and after it's already been some period of time and maybe even years, and they've had that impact on us. So I think, again, there isn't just that easy one size fits all answer, and you can find anywhere, right? I think you can find mentor as young as probably middle school, high school. You can find mentors when you're in college, be it professors, somebody even maybe older than you, right, in a different class, or in the jobs that we work in, or just people that we meet anywhere and everywhere that we are. I think that's the whole beauty of just networking and making it part of your experience. Because, right, we're just, I think, one connection away of having our entire world be changed in the best way.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that. You know, for me, it was actually an alumni event so it was my law school women alumni, and it was just wonderful and so powerful. And it really gave me the impetus to like start this podcast and really dig into that because I was like, this is what I care about. And I think it's like it takes a risk as the future mentees, like you have to be a little bit vulnerable, right? And you have to feel like it's safe to share my story. So
I
this is
think the hardest part is honestly starting. But I would encourage you just to start. Even if your story helped one person, I think that's the part, right? If your journey and your vulnerability impacted one individual, focusing on that, and then that's enough, and then that's wonderful. And I think just again, continuing to be okay being uncomfortable and just keep doing it and keep sharing it, that's, I think, where the beauty in it is.
definitely. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I just want to ask my one final question. What's one strategic move you think leaders could make to start building more fair and equitable workplaces?
I think just embracing the fact that the world around us is changing so fast that we need to be okay with having companies and processes and the way that we operate and think be as nimble and flexible as possible to be able to, again, be updated and adjusted as needed, or we need to adjust it more often that we have. And again, just I think throwing away the notion, well, this is how we've always done it, it no longer applies. And just because there's a great way of doing it a certain way yesterday, really everyday thinking, should I be doing something different? And is there a better way?
Thank you. Well,
Of
thanks
course.
again for being on the show. Is there you want to share a little bit about how folks can reach out to you and continue the conversation or reach out to you for other opportunities?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best. I'm on it every single day. So definitely love connecting with others, love expanding my network and getting to know folks. So anyone that wants to reach out, please feel free to drop a message, drop a connection, and I'll very much look forward to keeping this conversation going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Designing for Equity. If you found this conversation helpful, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with a friend or colleague. You can also sign up for my newsletter for more tools and insights at theresourcefullawyer.com. On LinkedIn, be sure to connect with me there too. And thanks for joining me in pursuit of equity.